Assalamualaikum and good greetings. I'll be watching a video by Marques Brownlee. Hopefully I didn't pronounce it wrong there. Titled Dear Electric Cars. Now I have been involved in researching and studying about electric cars starting 2 years back, I think, when I was involved in low carbon mobility blueprint of this country, and then I went to Europe, etc. To see how in Japan, to see how it is developed there. In terms of promoting the adoption in the mass population, right? Anyway, so this video is from 2 days ago or 3 days ago. I'm interested to see what he has to say. Let's go.
Hey, what's up? MKBHD here. Okay, I'm gonna have to oversimplify some things in this video, but I think it's necessary to get my point across. So at this point in 2020, there are two types of electric vehicles. There's Teslas.
Let me guess, everything else. Because how can you say two types and then one is Tesla? Of course, the rest is the rest.
And there's everything else. And I have messages for both. And I'm one of those people that honestly believes that electric cars are the future of cars, but they're just that. They're the future. And so there's a lot of work that both have to do to get there. Also, apparently Apple is also working on an electric car that could launch sometime in the next couple of years, likely with some sort of high-end battery tech. Sounds really interesting. Sounds very expensive, too. Also, are we sure it's going to come with a charger? But seriously, jokes aside.
Yeah, Apple joke, huh?
Let's say Apple is working on an electric car for somewhere in the next decade. They won't be alone. A lot of people, a lot of companies, a lot of the biggest in the world are working on electric cars to be at the forefront of their innovations for the next little bit. So, as someone who's been driving a lot of electric cars and who lives with one and all of its flaws and all of its upside and feels strongly about the whole thing, I've got a lot of messages. So let's start off with this. Dear electric cars, if you're coming out today with a premium electric car with 200 miles of range, you're already behind. So range is of course super important, and to me it's the number one baseline indicator for just how good the electric car program is within a certain manufacturer. It's like a baseline metric. So today, right now, the highest end electric cars are going, 250 to 400 miles on a full battery, right? So
Wait, so 400...
highest end electric cars are going, 250 to 400 miles.
400 miles is 600 kilometer, right? I think I'm not really up to date, especially in the electric cars in the US, because in Malaysia, when we talk about electric cars, we talk about those that is possible to come in here for this market. For sure, it doesn't have this kind of capacity of battery, because the price will be enormous in Malaysia. Right, so it's beyond affordable, except for the highest of the highest in terms of money wise people, right? Those who have. But interesting, because normally when we talk, because 2 years back, when we are starting to drafting in terms of what should be the way forward for the low carbon mobility in Malaysia, I don't think we are talking about cars that have 640 kilometer in a single battery. Yeah, that's yeah. I'm behind in the sense of the being up to date to the technology, I guess.
On a full battery, right? So the king of the hill right now is Tesla's long-range Model S. That's a 100 kilowatt-hour battery, 402 miles, and that's right now, today. In 2020, people are driving that car right now. So when someone comes out and says, we're gonna launch a new electric car sometime in the future, maybe in a year or two, and it'll have 200 miles of range, to some that number sounds pretty good, but to me, when I hear 200 miles, that's still pretty low. That's low enough that I still have to spend mental energy thinking about remembering where and when I'm going to charge this thing. Think about this. The median range for a full tank of gas for a typical gas car is about 400 miles today, with the best ones getting about 600, 700 miles on a full tank of gas. That is what you eventually want electric cars to match, maybe even do a little bit better since there's less gas stations. So that's why you see Tesla's already announced plans for a truck that'll do.
Yeah, that's always the challenge with EV, right? Is the technology of the battery, because you do not want the massive size of battery for that kilowatt hour to go that mile, because it makes the car heavier, and cost for that battery as well is a challenge. I think nowadays there's the race to to get to the peak of the technology to bring the battery cost to basically price parity. I think that's the aim. Yeah, interesting development.
Do 500 plus miles next year, and then a triple motor Model S that'll go 520 miles, and a two-door Roadster that'll eventually do 620 miles when it eventually comes out, I'm guessing in 2022. All of that comes from years of R&D priority on battery tech, drivetrains, efficiency, all the tech in the cars, aero, weight reduction, all of that stuff, to ultimately achieve the same level of convenience as a gas car. And speaking of gas, dear electric cars, gas stations are pretty underrated. Like, the electric car is only half the story. The charging network to charge these cars is the other half the story, and it's arguably just as important as the car itself. It's something we kind of take for granted, but the confidence of being able to just run your car down to nearly zero and just know that there is going to be a gas station somewhere within a mile or two of you, probably, is kind of amazing. It's huge. And so in this world of electric cars that obviously doesn't exist yet, so it's being built, and uniquely, it's being built often by the car maker themselves. So Tesla building and owning their Supercharger network, and actually Electrify America is owned by Volkswagen Group. And so there's more popping up every day. And so my bold hot take is, I think this part of it needs to be a collaborative effort. And look, I know that's a lot more complicated than it sounds, and I know that's easier said than done, but think about this. At this very moment in time, I find it pretty much impossible to recommend an electric car for daily use that is not a Tesla if you plan on doing any road trips. And this is a mostly US perspective. That's because Tesla's large and growing supercharger network here is literally as important to the car as the range, or the build quality, or literally any other feature. Honestly, maybe even more so. Matter of fact, I've said this in the past, and I'll go ahead and say it on record in this video again. If the Porsche Taycan could use Tesla superchargers, I would rather have that than a Model S, to be honest, just because of my set of feature priorities. Obviously build quality inside, but the way the car drives, it's still a four-door with plenty of space, and the software is good enough. I don't use autopilot all that much. I would rather have a Taycan if it could supercharge. But it can't. There was just a story recently about a couple who got their shiny new $100,000 electric Porsche, went for a road trip, and it took them 9 hours to go 130 miles. 9 hours. Basically, it came down to them having an unlucky streak of like a bunch of chargers in a row they visited, either being out of service or slow or full or whatever. Like, they couldn't see that stuff on the map because there was no guarantee. You were just sort of going where you thought you could find a good one. And they even passed some shiny new Tesla superchargers and couldn't use them because the Porsche is not compatible. But imagine if it was. That would be, in my opinion, a game changer for that car. I could actually recommend cars like that way more often. So literally,
yeah, this is another thing about EV as of now, right? Because unlike gasoline car, where you just need the fuel inside the tank and then to the engine, right? So the whatever shape is not important, right? Of course, there's a standardized shape there, right? But as long as you can make the fuel go inside, into the tank, no problem. But for electric appliance, you have to get that connectivity, right, in terms of the socket, etc. So obviously, to this point, would Tesla agree? Because interestingly, how he points out that he would favor that if Tesla charger, because it's I think Tesla charging facility is ahead than everything else in the US. But would they give that advantage away when they have invested in that facility, right? So not sure if that's gonna ever happen. But from our study, that is becoming, the country should regulate that if they want to go ahead in this direction, right? Make the charging facility or the charging features or the connectivity to be universal as a policy. Any EV want to come into this country have to have the same, so that everyone can charge everywhere in terms of charging facility. Of course, yet again, because normally charging facility is just electrical supply, and then it's just there, normally just one, especially in Malaysia currently, right? There's some places where you can see one individual charging station, because not many people use it anyway as of now. But if that broke down on malfunctioning, then the driver will become in a state of panic, because they have to know where is the other option, especially in long range trip, right? So as of now, that is the challenge, I guess.
Really, because of road trips, remember road trips? I eventually think we'll get back to that, but because I need to go to an ultimate tournament or go visit family in another state, I literally cannot recommend or buy for myself any electric car that's not a Tesla, because the charging networks aren't quite there yet for any of them. So here's my question. Why aren't more electric cars compatible with Tesla's supercharging network? Like, it seems like a win overall, right? It would be fast charging available for your car in a bunch more places. Makes it way easier to recommend your car. What is there? Maybe there's some sort of licensing fees or some sort of hidden terms that Tesla's built in. They said they've made it available. Why hasn't anyone taken them up on that? I actually tweeted this last week, wondering why it hadn't happened, to which Elon casually responded that Tesla superchargers are being made available to other electric cars. But just the fact that this isn't common yet is fascinating to me. I'm not saying make your car dependent exclusively on superchargers. No, that's a bad idea. But just adding that compatibility on top of the existing compatibilities already, wouldn't that be great? But hey, this may never happen. Maybe this is like me asking Apple to add a USB-C port alongside the iPhone's Lightning port, just because, hey, it would make it compatible with way more things. It's only a benefit to your product, right? But they obviously have dreams of a Lightning ecosystem that's turned out pretty well. And I feel like in the car world, a lot of these manufacturers have dreams of their own Lightning, their own charging network, their own secret sauce, which isn't built yet, but that's their dream. But look, if the long-term goal is to match the convenience of gas cars, then you want to eventually get the range all the way up to match the gas cars, and then build up enough electric chargers to be as common as gas cars. Now, I can see the range getting there eventually, but to build up all of these chargers to match how many gas stations we have is going to take a lot, and there's no way you do that all yourself. So you might as well make it compatible with the ones that are already the most built out. I'm just saying. Anyway.
So that is the comparison, right? Tesla and the rest in terms of charging facility. But is Tesla charging facility meaning sufficient enough in the US? Meaning that I doubt it is matching the petrol fuel gasoline fuel station, right? But is it, widely enough? In terms of Malaysia, right now, the charging facility, of course, BMW have its own network, I think, because the largest EV, or rather PHEV actually, in Malaysia is, I believe, BMW, when they launched the plug-in hybrid electric vehicle. And back then, when they launched it, they managed to, because there's a policy that subsidized, or is it not really subsidized, but the tax reduction or something that makes the price in parity with the non-EV, non-plug-in hybrid, right? So people buy a lot of those, but it's just because the price is the same, might as well buy the plug-in hybrid. And the issue is plug-in hybrid, not the issue, but with plug-in hybrid, even if they do never charge it, it just drive as, because they have both fuel and electric, right? It's not fully battery. So yeah, journey towards full BEV is a long way to go in Malaysia, especially.
Okay, so there was an article on electric pretty recently about someone at Ford, pretty high up, sort of throwing some shade at Tesla, saying things like, the doors fit properly, about Ford cars, the plastics and other materials color match, the bumpers don't fall off, the roof doesn't come off when you wash it. He's saying buyers will not have to make these compromises with Ford's electric vehicles. But see, what he's obviously leaving out, and what I see so often when talking about the electric cars coming from these other big manufacturers, is there is still a compromise. It's not that compromise, but there is still a compromise. Because the Mustang Mach-E, which I've driven, and that I love, and that I think is great, I think it's one of the most user-friendly and reasonable and well-thought-out electric cars to come out so far. That Mach-E, the entry-level model, goes 210 miles on a charge. And the fully max spec, best version they can possibly make, $60,000 Mach-E, goes 300 miles on a full charge. And by the way, of course, none of them will do supercharging with Tesla's network. That is a compromise. And so guess what, Ford and many of the others, people have been choosing the Tesla a lot lately, you might have noticed. And so that means you're right to use the word compromise, but people are often picking the one with the great battery, with the performance and fun to drive stuff and the tech features over the one that's actually better built. It's just facts. There's a lot of people like me out there who would drive a super minimal, very plain car with not that many bells and whistles if it went 1,000 miles on a charge over the best built thing you could possibly make if it only goes 200 miles. It's an exaggeration, obviously, but still, that's the priorities that a lot of electric car buyers have right now because there are no chargers everywhere. So for all those advantages the big automakers have of being able to mass produce quality cars at huge scale with great materials, awesome designs, tight tolerances, and a ton of SKUs, they are still 3 or 4 years behind in the battery and drivetrain technology and the charger networks, which are enough for people to not really want to leave the gas cars that they know and love. And it's the reason I don't drive a Taycan or a Mach-E or an e-tron right now, and it's the reason that a Tesla feels like the only financially responsible version of a premium electric car as far as convenience goes. Which brings me to Tesla. Oh, you probably thought you were safe from this video, Tesla, but no, I drive one, which means I have to deal with all the upside and all the downside that comes with them, and I have some messages for you too. Dear Tesla, this one advantage that you have that's very real that we've talked about is eventually gonna go away. Right? Eventually, Tesla has gone all in on their battery technology and their drivetrains and their efficiency, and they're years ahead on that, right? So they've been building their battery, their gigafactories, they've been building their electric motors and slapping a car on top, and that's almost like the least important part of the car itself, because when you drive it, it's so fun and it goes so far and you can plug it in so easily. So a lot of people out there buying their first electric car, getting a Tesla, that have never owned a Porsche or an Audi or a BMW or a Ford aren't really super used to super high quality interiors. They're fine with the interior of a Tesla because it matches their priorities, and that's great. But eventually, there's the other half of people who, when they spend $50,000, $70,000, $90,000 on a car, expect a certain level of interior quality. Eventually, Tesla, you're going to have to match and invest in matching that quality of build and fit and finish. You know, I've had a lot of little random quirks with my Model S, things like wind noise, things like water in the taillights. Of course, there was that one drivetrain failure I had years ago. And then that Model Y that I reviewed here a little while ago this year had some weird quirks, some strange build quality flaws in a review car. But it's not just about me. Lots of people have had way more severe issues than me. And the rate of these issues with Tesla is still currently high enough that you eventually got to address it. Now, when is that point? When should that focus shift? And that's hard to say. Obviously Tesla's doing super well right now. Their investors are really happy. They continue to make big strides in battery. They're about to drop eventually a Roadster that'll do 0 to 60 in 1.9 seconds with 620 miles of range. Like, that took money to create. And it's crazy. I'm looking forward to that car so much, but it's also kind of a shame that I feel like I already know that car is going to have some build quality shortcomings, or at least some quirks, or some plastics, or some panel gaps, as much as I hate saying it, just because that's what we expect from every new production line from that Californian car company at this point. So here's my take. See this graph here? This graph is a little old. It's from 2016, but it still applies here. It's showing the minimum, maximum, and median range of electric cars out. Plug-in hybrids and gas cars. So electric cars are way lower than gas cars, as you can see, but they bump up a little bit every year as the technology improves. In 2020, the max is around 400. So maybe in a few years, when the Roadster finally drops with the max around 600 and the median is coming up with it because the tech lowers in price, I think when we eventually get to the point where the median range for an electric car at a...
By the way, I guess this is the consideration, I think, because even in the strategy that we try to put in, plug-in hybrid seems to be the way in, so that more people become accustomed to the electric side of the vehicle, because plug-in hybrid have both, right? I'm not sure whether that is also the case, because Tesla goes straight away to all electric vehicle, and because of their technology, etc., they're doing well. But the price range of Tesla for Malaysian case is beyond what most people can afford. Even Leaf, right? Nissan Leaf, I think that's the cheapest. I'm not sure, because the Chinese models are not yet. Maybe they don't have to come to Malaysia because their market is even bigger than exporting here, right? But point is, they might be cheaper than Nissan Leaf. I'm not sure. But BMW is done well with plug-in hybrid. I think in the near future in our country, if the support towards electrification is to go on, I think plug-in hybrid will become more common before we would ever see electric vehicle becomes more common. I think that's my take for our country.
600 and the median range for an electric car at a certain price matches the median range of a gas car for the same price. That's when I would love to see Tesla take a little more investing in fit and finish and hit that last whack-a-mole of just build quality. Just finally focus on build quality. Like, you obviously still continue to invest in battery technology and drivetrains and all the stuff that makes Tesla Tesla. But yeah, eventually the others are going to start to catch up in that department, and you're going to want to catch up in the department you're lacking in, which would hopefully put everyone on the same playing field in both respects. So there you have it. Now, there's a lot of other things I could rant about in the electric car world, from the naming schemes of these things to the software updates that they should all definitely get, to all the grills that they can definitely slowly get rid of, to these weird door handles they all feel the need to do. There's a lot happening in electric cars. But the bottom line is, electric cars are coming, and they're coming fast, and they all, if they're gonna make it, they ought to all get better together in all of the ways where they struggle. That's basically it. Hope this helps. That's how I feel about it. Let me know in the comments below if you're into the idea of this electric future, and do you think your next car will be electric or not? I think that's a fun question. Either way, that's been it. Thanks for watching. Catch you guys in the next one.
Okay, so if that question is for me, I doubt it, because of the price range. I don't see in the near future there will be any electric vehicle that can come into Malaysia and become affordable. Actually, the issue with Malaysia is that, right, it is the issue of unless Malaysia produce its own electric vehicle, that will take long years of development to make it happen, because of the issue of the price range. With the current policy, where import costs is heavily taxed, as you know, that's the discussion about how to protect the Malaysian car industry, etc. Right? So I guess it's to push the EV manufacturing and development in the country, just like when we started to develop our own cars. Perhaps that's the way forward to make affordable EV. Until then, I doubt I would have the money to even consider EV, right? Even PHEV, like BMW, the models that have plug-in hybrid electric vehicle, it's beyond my ability to afford, of course. All right, so this is, yeah, hopefully this will be, I rarely, this is actually the first time I react to a video that is tech based. I have some interest in this area, because not because I own EV or I would be owning any EV, because it's I have been involved in the development of the blueprint towards low carbon, and electric vehicle obviously is one consideration in that, right? So I have the interest in that aspect. So yeah, what do you think? Anyway, hopefully 2021 will be a better overall for all of us, inshallah. Until then, see you next time.